about more information to be available later, but this was already Thursday or Friday, and there was no information, so I called. This is a public meeting. Well, it took about 2 hours for somebody to figure out that, yeah, it was a public meeting, and they would put me on the list. Well, that raised some doubts about whether it was really a public meeting or not, and further had doubts when I noticed that the item disappeared from the calendar shortly after that. Maybe it wasn't so public, but I think it should have been, and I think it's important that the board and the administration understand their obligations under the Open Meetings Act and make clear that meetings that are board meetings, basically, or meetings where the board is in attendance, must be public meetings. They must be announced. And actually, they should have an announcement of what the subject of the meeting is, maybe an agenda. And I've been concerned in the past that this meeting doesn't really have an agenda announced ahead of the meeting to say, what is it that you're talking about in this meeting that I might be interested in and that I might want to make comment about, either before or after the meeting. The board meetings that we had some time ago, before COVID and maybe more years before that, when things were done on paper, we would get, at least at the meeting, we'd get a big packet, probably about this thick, of paper, what was about the meeting and about a lot of other things that were relevant. So we actually had copies of things that were being considered, like contracts. And that's gone out the window. So it's not very clear to the public what's going to be talked about and what is talked about, what it really is, because we don't have access to the information. And I think it's important that you make more clear what it is you're doing and what's going on at the meeting and who's supposed to be here, and make sure that it's clear that it is a public meeting and people have a right to be providing public comment. One other comment about the breakfast. I was kind of disappointed that I would have liked to have the legislators each introduce themselves as opposed to just standing anonymously briefly. I would like to know who's really here, because I don't recognize them all. I recognize many of them at all. So it would be good to make it a little more clear, and potentially even have them sit somewhere so that they're more visible to the audience, whoever else is in the room.
Okay.
So, thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Is there anyone else who has public comment? There being no one, at this time, we have a special moment of commemoration. I would ask you, if you can, to please rise. On December 22nd, our organization, this board, and the communities that we serve lost a great supporter, Dr. Stephen Taub. Dr. Taub served on this board for nearly 20 years, and due to his health had to retire from the board about a year ago. He joined this board after 35 years of service as a family physician, where he was deeply loved by the families that he served. He started his medical career in the U.S. Navy, where he was stationed at the Long Beach Naval Station Alcohol and Substance Abuse Clinic, now known as the Betty Ford Center. His advocacy efforts and professional expertise have helped shape both state policy and legislation, most notably with his leadership roles on the Michigan Association of Community Mental Health Boards, where he served as an officer for 6 years and as president from 2013 to 2016. At this time, if there's any board members who want to join in any remembrance of Dr. Taub, please do so.
Thank you. I knew Steve, but not until I joined this board, and he helped show me the ropes, if you will, helped me understand what's going on, who's a friend, and almost everyone across the state was a friend from his perspective. And I learned that and have carried that with me since. And he was an amazing guy, as long as we didn't go into politics. But in talking about what's good for the folks we serve, who's going to do what, he used to like to speculate what was going to happen, and 9 times out of 10 he was usually pretty close in terms of what was going to happen with the state. So I certainly have missed him. I've stayed in touch once he stepped away. From the board, but I stayed in touch with him and with his wife Shelley, and we'll still do that. And it is a loss. We lost a lot of institutional knowledge when he stepped away. So, thank you.
Anyone else? I just want to add that I had the opportunity to know Steve and his wife for over 20 years before I even got on the board. I enjoyed 2 years of sitting next to him. And I would be remiss, and he would be unhappy, if we did not mention that he was buried in a University of Michigan sweatshirt just about a week before the national championship game. So we know he was rooting from heaven. So at this time, I would ask for a moment of silence, and we join his family and friends in remembrance of our friend, Dr. Stephen Todd. Thank you very much. All right, our next item is Stories That Inspire Hope. Suzanne, do you want to do the... Come on up, Ashley and Taylor.
Good evening, everyone. It's my pleasure to introduce to you Taylor Eberhardt. And Taylor is from the Community Housing Network, and Ashley Kuniverti, and she is from the Alliance for Housing. And this is timely because it's regarding our point-in-time count, which is happening next week on January the 31st in the evening from 7 to 11 p.m. So I'm going to turn it over to them so they can talk a little bit more about the point-in-time count and the significance of it for our community and for our homeless population.
Okay. Oh, can you hear me? Okay, good. All right, so I work for the Alliance for Housing, which is the continuum of care of Oakland County. This is a federally mandated body, and we see over some HUD dollars and some MSHDA dollars that go out into our community. For example, Community Housing Network is one of our sub-grantees, and they run a few programs with those dollars. So to focus on the point-in-time count, essentially this is an annual sheltered and unsheltered count of people experiencing homelessness that's conducted across the whole nation within the last 10 days of January each year. This point-in-time count is essential to gain a better understanding of the number of people who are experiencing homelessness in Oakland County on any given night, and the data that's the data that is gathered helps shape policy and programs within our local community, but then also up there at HUD. And the data does get sent to HUD, which then also gets sent to Congress. So overall, it's a really big time in our community to get a sense of what's going on, who needs more assistance, and where. And I'm going to pass it over to Taylor because I'm more of the logistical planning side, but she's been a team leader for years now, so she has some great input on that.
Hi, everybody. It's good to be back here again talking about point in time. I think it was last year or the year before I also talked with y'all about PIT. We like our acronyms. So yes, I work at Community Housing Network. I'm getting closer to the 10-year mark than any others. Originally started as an intern there, so it's fun to see how we've grown over the years. So as Ashley said, I've done the point in time count for many years. And it is one of my favorite nights, actually. And we have some HUD representatives that will be joining us in Oakland County. We have 4 of them. So that's a nice time where they're stuck in a car with us, so they get to answer all our fun questions. Like, so what about this, HUD? But it's a really great opportunity while we're out. So we, Community Housing Network specifically has about 12 teams that will be participating in the point-in-time count. So we spread out over the entire county. And we're in our car. We check in with our police departments first just to let them know that we're out in the community. A few years ago, I forgot to turn my lights on and got pulled over, and I was like, oh, sorry, I'm one of those volunteers out there. But we check in with them. We also like to educate them about what we do. So we educate them about our Housing Resource Center at Community Housing Network and all the other resources available through our continuum of care with the Alliance for Housing and all the great community partners. Oakland Community Health Network and your core providers are also in that group. So we do a lot of education about what we're doing, why the count is important. This helps us with our funding. It helps us to continue to serve those that are experiencing homelessness in Oakland County. We also will start to canvass. Our street outreach team gives input every year as to where there might be some like hot spots where folks are staying. They do training for the team so that they know where they might need to look. We know that folks that are experiencing unsheltered homelessness often are looking for places that block wind, are out of sight, different things like that. When we're looking in parking lots for cars where somebody might be sleeping at night, it gets cold, obviously, and so we look for fogged up windows, things like that. So we go over training with the community partners and the volunteers that are participating. And we get a really awesome playlist going. You get some hot chocolate, and you go out and you talk to folks. That's really what we're doing is if we encounter somebody that's on the streets or unsheltered, we ask them some questions, some of the required questions, but it's really just, how are you, what's going on? We do have transportation available to get them to shelter that night if they're interested in going. We also will connect, make sure that they have information about how to get connected to housing resources. Our street outreach team also does follow up at any of the spots where folks were found. We do a day after count as well, so maybe I tend to have like downtown Royal Oak. Ashley threw me off this year. She gave me a different map. But in the last few years, there are some parking structures under the staircases where folks will sleep. And if they're not there, but you see evidence of some things, we'll leave information. The Alliance for Housing also collects different bags to provide with food, water, some information. Different hats, gloves, things like that. Yeah. So we'll leave those, and then like I said, the outreach team will follow up the next day to see if maybe they're there in the first thing in the morning, those kind of things. Maybe we didn't catch them when they were there sleeping. But it's crucial to our community, like I said, because of that funding piece and how Ashley was explaining that these numbers do get to HUD. We know that in Oakland County we do have high numbers of people experiencing homelessness. The shelters also count who's in shelter, and so those numbers are reported so that we have an idea of what homelessness looks like. And I think, Ashley, you have the number from last year. Mm-hmm. So that was what?
So, well, in 2022, there was 1,147 literally homeless individuals in Oakland County, and this is based off our HMIS, which is Housing Management Information System, which the Alliance is the lead agency for, and so we're the ones collecting all that data, sending it to HUD, doing the annual reports, things like that. Not my wheelhouse, so we have 2 really wonderful women who do that for us. And yeah, I think that's about it. And then, as you can see, there was almost 400 people last year just in one night. 44 were unsheltered, 91 were in transitional housing, and 251 were in emergency shelter. So we also do count the individuals within our programs as well. That's called the housing inventory chart, and those numbers also get sent up to HUD.
So then this allows us to be able to advocate for more funding and different policy changes like Ashley had explained. But yeah, Point in Time is a great night. It's great when we don't find folks too. And so when there's communities that maybe we don't find, we use it as a night to do some community education. So last year we had a team that was in a community that they weren't able, they looked around, they were searching, and they didn't see anybody living on the streets. And so they went into some of the 24-hour places and talked to them about if anybody had been coming in that maybe was experiencing homelessness or if they knew anything. And they actually had disclosed that they had been paying for some hotels for folks. And they were like, oh my goodness, I'm so excited to learn about what resources are in the community, because they were just doing it out of the goodness of their hearts and didn't know that there were resources. So it allowed us to do some community education. So even when the teams aren't encountering anyone, we still are out there talking to those different places where folks might be hanging out. And like we said, we always check in with the police departments and do some education with them about the services so that if they ever come across anyone, they know where to direct folks. So, yeah. Are there any questions about the point in time count? Because I think that covers it. And
Anybody have any questions for our guests? Pastor John?
Let me compliment you on the work that you do. Question I have, do you have an age breakdown? That's two questions. One is the age breakdown. That's number one. And of the group that just says, no, I'm going to stay where I am, okay? Because I'm sure there's a number that just feel like, hey, we'll bear this, don't worry about it. So do you keep up or track that number as well?
so the Alliance for Housing does do an annual report every year that has the breakdown of all the demographics, ages, races, mental health conditions, things like that for the folks that are served in Oakland County who are experiencing homelessness. And that is on the Alliance for Housing's website, the yearly annual report. So I don't have the numbers. I don't think Ashley has them right off the top of our heads right now of what that looks like, but that data is available through the Alliance for Housing. As far as folks that maybe are unsheltered and that's where they want to be and that's their choice, we make sure that they have access to blankets, things like that, so that they can stay warm. And we offer if they would like to go to shelter, but not everybody wants to. And that's where the outreach team that is actually a part of Community Housing Network. We have a street outreach team. They do contact those folks and will follow up. And so they'll mark that on their calendars and make sure that they're getting connected to those folks and try and build some rapport and get them into housing as well. So we do follow up on that, yeah.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Anyone else? Dr. Hans?
Yeah, Pastor Jones' question was part of my question. But I want to know, a lot of unhoused people choose not to be in a shelter or in a house. They just like to live the way they are currently living. So how do we provide, and it may not be in your domain to answer that, but what I would like to know, how services are provided for those people. And also, what about children and adolescents? There are a certain number of that population that is critical to be supported because, I have kind of a stake in that in the sense that I always think about children.
Absolutely.
And what our future in 10, 15 years would look like. So thank you.
Absolutely. So to your first question about folks that maybe don't want to access shelter or services or get housed, we follow housing first policies, and the Alliance for Housing, and that's a HUD mandate, is that we work on getting folks housed and then connected to other resources, but it is ultimately their choice. I will share that we have had folks that it has taken us years to build rapport with. So our outreach team, I think the years start to get weird with the pandemic. Sorry, I'm like, it might have been last year or 2 years ago, sorry. But I know that in the last few years, we had an individual who was experiencing chronic homelessness, who had been homeless for 10 plus years, and the outreach team had been engaged with him for at least 7 of those years, and he finally was housed. It took 7 years for them to talk with him and figure out what was going on and all of those things, and so he was able to get housed. So sometimes it does take a long time. Sometimes folks, that's what they know, and we're not here to pass judgment and any of those things, so it is client-centered, participant-centered, but we are when somebody does want housing, we don't add any additional barriers to that. So, criminal background doesn't matter, their income limit, those, like, somebody may not have income, and once we get them housed, that's where supportive services are provided to make sure that they get connected for what services they do want or are interested in, and we do housing, goal planning. So that was a question I was able to answer, because that's some of the programs I oversee at Community Housing Network, so I was like, whew, I do know that one. As far as, adolescents and youth, I'll pass it to Ashley in a second, but we do have, some youth providers in our community. We also have some programming specifically for women and youth. So Lighthouse, Michigan has a rapid rehousing program that's specifically for women with children. So we do have some targeted services for that, as well as Lighthouse expanded their family shelter capacities. And then we also work really closely with Oakland schools and their McKinney-Vento liaisons, and we have a great relationship with them. And Kelly Phillips is the program manager for that, and so she is phenomenal, and makes sure that her families that are in the schools and that they're aware of that are experiencing homelessness get connected to resources. But I don't know if Ashley has more on the youth side.
Took it exactly. I was going to mention our Oakland School homeless liaison, Kelly Phillips. She's amazing. So
Yeah,
pretty much covered it already. No, you're good. I love it.
I'm a talker, so sorry.
And I'm not, so it works out very well. Is there any other questions? Sure.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, with the extreme cold weather we've been having, has there been a surge in people requesting placement at your emergency shelters?
I am going to try not to get emotional with this. So last year, we did see that we had some participants who froze to death. I also personally had a family member who froze to death last year, and then recently this week, we had another participant freeze to death. So we take it very seriously, and our shelters will increase capacity for like certain nights that I don't know the exact thresholds for temperatures and things like that, but Hope Adult Shelter is notorious for opening their doors, expanding some capacity for like a night that we know it's getting extremely cold. Lighthouse Shelter does the same. Haven as well, you know, our shelters in the community. Our teams that have different rental assistance programs are working tirelessly to get folks into housing, onto other long-term programs. They're able to maintain their rent so then we can make more space for other folks that haven't accessed those dollars. And then recently we do have some funding that came through to expand shelter capacity. The Alliance is actually administering that, and that I'm super grateful for those funds in our community, especially because the weather has been so terrible. So thank you for acknowledging that. But.
And my second question was, how long is emergency shelter?
That depends on the shelter.
It depends on whatever the shelters kind of
determine
that.
Yeah, some of them are 30-day shelters, some are 60, and some are 90. So it really depends. But I do know that a lot of we have phenomenal shelter staff that if somebody is waiting on an inspection for their unit with a voucher or something, they're not going to say, okay, go on the streets. You know, they'll work with them. It really depends. And then sometimes people only need shelter for a little bit. I think I might have shared this previously, but I am a person with lived experience. I experienced homelessness. I have a master's degree in social work. I'm a clinical social worker, and so I think that when we think about who is homeless and what's happening, it can really happen to anybody. I was displaced by a hurricane. I didn't live in Michigan. And so I had moved out of state and just needed a little bit of assistance, so I was able to get help with my security deposit. But I was living in my car, and because I did not want to sleep outside because they have copperheads in North Carolina. But there are a lot of times where, really assistance is very dependent on the person, what they need. So somebody might need shelter for a night because they had a dispute. Somebody might need it longer term. But we are, I would say I work in a few communities in homeless services, and I would say Oakland County is one of the most coordinated, and we advocate and, work on getting folks served as quickly as possible. I wish some of you guys could meet some of the shelter staff. They're phenomenal and really care about what they do and have been fantastic in getting folks connected to housing. We also have seen like a surge in our homeless services with, our aging population, and we've built really strong connections with a lot of our senior complexes to make sure that our aging folks are quickly getting housed and all of that stuff. So, Oakland County does a remarkable job in homeless service. There's work to be done still. I'm not gonna, I'll be transparent, but, I think we do a great job as a community, so.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor Jones.
All of this, thank you very much for being here and what you do. And this is very, very sensitive topic for all of us. In the promotions, and I think that most people do not know, and you sort of identified it today, that you have a master's degree and that you have been homeless. And I'm not certain that we're getting the word out as to what homelessness looks like, okay? You know, I was in a meeting earlier today, we talked about public service announcements and all of that. How can we help you in painting the picture of what homelessness looks like? Because I think that people have a misconception of what that homeless person looks like, what they're going through, or blah, blah, blah. And that's why I was asking, you know, some people say, I'm going to stay, don't worry about me. So is there something that we can offer or something from your experiences that you say, wow, guess what? If you did this, we can achieve some success in alleviating, we would never eliminate, but alleviating the image and the homeless situation.
Yeah, so debunking stigma, you all know this at OCHN very well, can be difficult in navigating what something looks like and those kind of things. I have my department write success stories on a monthly basis, and I'm like, tell me what's going on. So I got a whole slew of things of, you know, folks that have, you know, what's happened. I see a lot of folks who had a health concern that led to a job loss, that led to maybe substance use to cope or mental health concerns because of the loss or of employment or their physical health or whatnot, and then that you know, they end up experiencing homelessness. We see a lot of people who are experiencing homelessness for the first time later in life. So I think that we have some really good data and then some stories that could help build that and kind of painting the picture of that. And I think that that's a good thing for Ashley to take back to the Alliance for Housing on how we can maybe do that a little better in our community. So,
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, and I think if you could do something like that, that's great that you're tracking that, and then there has to be a distribution, okay, at different meetings, different places, so that people know what homelessness looks like.
Absolutely.
Okay, and so if there's a way, maybe that's something that you go back, you can say, let's look at where are we distributing the information, you know, because people get the package and what have you, but they are a store of information and not a user of information, okay?
Yeah.
Good. Jonathan?
I've been struggling because I've been reading up on this topic for the last year or two, and I'm seeing other terminology out there. I've heard unhoused, I've heard home instead of homeless, houseless. What is the right term, and is it a new term, or is it still homeless?
So our federal government still calls it homeless, but there are some folks in different arenas that have started to use houseless or unhoused. I don't think that right now there has been a determination of which is best, but all three are used pretty interchangeably,
Okay. I only ask because more than a few years ago, the folks we served, we called them consumers, and then there was an evolution of terminology and preferences because we finally, instead of just said that's what we're calling you, we asked what would be your preference? And then now I see the same thing going through in this space. So I wondered.
And I will say that it gets tricky because of HUD's definitions, HUD's 4 categories of homelessness, that somebody experiencing homelessness, that means something entirely different to that, like somebody who might be going from couch to couch, or staying with family or in a hotel may call or say, I'm homeless, but HUD would not consider that homeless. And so sometimes it gets into those tricky definitions. That's where, like, I still am primarily using homeless because of, like, a definition standpoint. But when I talk to people, I don't say, oh, hey, you homeless person. I'm like, hey, John, how are you? You know, but there hasn't been anything, that I've seen particularly on change, like, I've just seen, similar to you, people using different terms, and it hasn't really been formalized which one is best yet, so.
Okay.
But I appreciate that question.
It
I hope,
doesn't sound like it's sticking, I hope.
Yeah.
I hope this isn't becoming my meeting. This is just exciting for me. You know, I passed the hallway today, and I passed it each time I come in, and it said, sticks and stones, we break my bones, but stigma. And as we look at this, and thank you very much for talking about how do we define it. And so, to get a person, so that we take away the stigma of somebody saying, I'm homeless. And that's why we need a picture, what does homelessness look like, okay? It's the common Joe, it's the Mary Jane, you know? So if there's a way, again, I'll go back to getting that word out, talking more about it. I'll plan to do that as well. But then trying to remove the stigma, And so I think that the idea of throwing different names out, like my partner here is saying, housed, not housed, or what have you, hey, this is where I am.
Yeah.
And we need to make sure that it does not hold a stigma.
Yeah,
Thank you.
absolutely.
All right, Dr. Hunt?
So help me understand, so what is HUD's criteria for homelessness,
Yeah.
unhoused?
Yeah, so HUD's definition, so they have 4 definitions. So there is category 1, which is literally homeless, and so that's on the streets, in a shelter, or a place not meant for habitation. So when we're doing the point in time count, we're looking to count those that are literally homeless by HUD's definition. Category 2 is at risk of homelessness, so that's our folks that might be facing eviction and have nowhere else to go, or maybe in a hotel, doubled up, couch surfing, those kind of things are in the at-risk category, and they have to be at risk of losing their nighttime residence in 14 days from the time they call. I don't like that I have that memorized. And then category 3, this is gonna, I don't have a lot of programs for category 3, so this one's gonna trip me up. This one is unaccompanied youth. And so that's some of the, like, McKinney-Vento liaisons, and so that's when there's not a regular nighttime residence. And then category 4 is fleeing domestic violence and sexual assault and human trafficking. There are different priorities for funding based on those different categories, and historically the largest amount of funding goes to those who are experiencing literal homelessness. At risk of homelessness is the least funded, outside of, like, the category 3 unaccompanied youth. But we're seeing some new pilot programs for youth services. So, but yeah, and then category 4, there's been some recent funding for more of that, because we know that folks that are fleeing domestic violence, that's one of the largest risk factors to becoming homeless. But yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you very much. You had an extended stay here. We appreciate, but good luck next week.
Thank you so much.
And we hope the weather cooperates.
No, me too.
And all your volunteers have a good night. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all so much.
Our next item on the agenda is draft survey needs assessment. Francis, Carly, and Christine Burke. Welcome.
Hi, Hi, good evening. I'm Frances Carley, the Director of Strategic Initiatives. I'm here with Christine Burke, our Chief of Staff. And we are here tonight to discuss the planning and design of this year's annual needs assessment. And the needs assessment is a survey that goes out annually in the spring, and then we get responses from various stakeholders in the community, from the board, from people receiving services, of course, that's our main goal, and then any providers and other people in the community who have a stake in the services that are provided at OCHN. So right now we are discussing the initial planning and the initial design of the survey. We shared the first draft with the board on Boardable, and we've received some feedback to start, but what we're doing right now is collecting feedback, collecting suggestions for revisions or additional questions, things like that from the work groups, from OCHN staff, our chiefs, and also the board, of course. So moving on to the key differences in this year's survey design, we decided to maintain, last year we took the approach of using a design for people receiving services where there were two options, a shorter survey and then a longer survey, so people could decide what type of survey they wanted to take. And further this year, so we continued with that design and then also went through all of the language, condensed some of the language, made it more concise, tried to remove anything that was redundant and really streamline the questions as much as possible. We also focused on 3 target areas this year. So last year we were focusing on trying to get feedback about various crisis services. This year we really focused in on a few key strategic areas that where we're really trying to gauge the public's investment and understanding of, and really what the starting point is for a few of our programs and a few different program models. So that includes the CCBHCs, which is the Certified Community Behavioral Health Clinics, the YFCC, which is our Youth Family Care Connection in Pontiac that is at the RCC, and then our Justice Initiatives. So in terms of getting input on the survey design, as I mentioned, you know, we're reaching out to the work groups, the board, and staff as well. Next slide, please. So in terms of the timeline for getting the survey results, getting the feedback, finalizing the design, and then having that lead into the annual plan, I've included a few of the main milestones for the upcoming months. So we're working on the draft survey, making revisions this month to the end of January. Our visits to the clubhouses and some of the other sites, we do some in-person visits for people receiving services. We're doing that in January to February. And we also will begin distributing the survey in the end of January through February and March, and the survey will be going out through, will be available for, will be open to responses to the last Friday in March. From there, we will present the results in a comprehensive report in May at one of the board meetings, and then we'll begin using the report to develop the upcoming annual plan for fiscal year 25. I'll turn it over to Christine.
Good evening, everyone. we're going to be showing you some slides about how we have done things in the past, and then I'll talk to you about some of the changes we're planning for the future. Two things we took away from last year from this board specifically, Dr. Hans, I know, and Jonathan often mention about increasing the number of responses, which we continue to do. We always want that number to be larger. When I first joined, we used to get about 200 responses to our survey from the whole network, and the people we serve were the smallest, represented the smallest number. We do receive over more than 1,000 now, and the people we serve have, for the last 2 years, have been represented the group that we hear from the most. So we look at what we're doing that's working, and then how do we expand that. So these are some of from an electronic outreach perspective, the supports we receive using our constant contact, support from the county, but keeping in mind not everybody has access to electronic technology, and that's very important when you're trying to reach people and really get their feedback. Next slide. In-person presentations have become a priority for this organization. So Suzanne and the communications team, Francis, we recruit some volunteers, really have been boots on the ground to have those conversations in some of our day programs, our vocational programs, our autism centers. One of our greatest assets in the last year or two in terms of getting feedback have been our school mental health navigators, because they are in the community more. We create a QR code, and so wherever they are in the community doing a presentation, we're also trying to engage people from that perspective. In the past, we have not always been really good at targeting our substance use disorders. We talked about even our faith-based communities, our shelters, really making sure that we're expanding beyond our network. What we have learned and talked about with Dana, with other members of leadership, is our strength in reaching people does lie within our network. So last year, Pastor Jones talked about the transportation, because our numbers look to us like transportation's good, because we're talking about our clubhouses, we're talking about our service centers, so we are talking about people with whom we are providing transportation. They're going to give a good response. We made sure they got to where they wanted to be in a clubhouse. But that isn't reflective of the entire community. So a very significant change in the way we're going to do our needs assessment this year is we're looking at this as a small portion of the needs assessment. This is actually going to be more from a perspective of a survey, which is a larger part, a smaller part of a larger needs assessment. And then what we'll do is compare that with data sets that are compiled from the county or from other organizations from the state. And so we'll be able to look at and compare, this is what's happening within our network, this is what's happening within the whole community. And we think that that will provide us with a better perspective on gaps on how we need to build our plan. General distribution, we will continue to work with our media. We'll make sure that it's posted on calendars. You can post things on different newspaper calendars. We use Patch. We will have ongoing social media posts. We also distribute hard copies to all of our service sites. That's something Malkaya had brought to our attention probably 4 or 5 years ago. That in itself continues to improve. We send hard copies of the survey specifically to our specialized red centers, and we include prepaid postage in there. The first time we did that, we had 25 responses. Usually we get close to 200 now. So people are becoming more familiar with the fact that they're going to get the survey. It has some instructions on it. We ask them to complete one survey for staff, one survey for a person served. Things that we learn when we're out in the community too, even with our best preparation. Last year was a good example. We thought we had made the questions concise. The minute we started to do our verbal presentation, we were presenting it differently because it was saying, me, not me, and then we had doesn't represent me, or someone, and we just as soon as we started talking, we'd say not me, and so we've made those changes. So while we are out in the community, while we're within our network, we're really always taking those opportunities to learn. When we're done, we're always asking, was this easy for you to complete? Did you understand what we were asking from you? And we pay attention to what the people we serve tell us, and that is why we continue to condense some of those questions and try to get what we need without making the people we feel overwhelmed. And I think when you're in those settings, it is a reminder for all of us that the people we serve, some of them have really serious needs and challenges. And so what's always maybe the best practice and how you would write a survey for the rest of the world, we have to modify and make sure we're writing the best survey for the people we serve. And they may look different, and we're going to make those changes whenever we need to. You will be asked to participate also. I know someone will have some questions.
Yep, any questions? Yes.
Thank you. The short version you said, there's a short version of the survey, so they probably go in, and then when they get to like question 2 or 3, then if they say I want the short survey, it takes them somewhere else. How short is that short survey?
I think it's about, last year was about 4 pages, and it's more of a checklist. So what we've done is try to create a subject category, right? So in a longer survey, there may be more detailed questions. The shorter survey is capturing more of what works for me, what doesn't. What am I happy with? What am I not happy with? So it allows us to get a better sense of how the people we serve feel about their services. The longer survey is more programmatic in question and detailed. It's a little more community-wide, I would say.
So it'd be like 4 pages, and then the other one would be it seems as though it's going to be longer.
The other one is longer, and also, just to mention, and I know Jonathan had a question about this, you can check more than one option. The difference with the survey when you're doing it electronically, you check, and we do have that in the instructions, is based on the information and how you select an item, it will branch you to a separate set of questions specific for that group. We do allow people to go back in and take that survey more than once. So if you want to do the survey from the perspective of an individual serving services, you can check that box. It'll take you to the branch of those questions. If you want to go back in and say, I now want to complete this as a parent of a youth who's receiving services, that's going to take that parent to a very specific set of questions about youth and family in our community, which is one of our priorities.
And what happens, let's say I fill out the survey and I don't finish it, so do you count the questions that I do respond, and then the other ones just fall off?
You really need to, especially when you're talking about the people we serve. Sometimes they start taking the survey, and what we have found in person is depending on their level of care that they have, they're really excited and they're gung-ho about the first 2 pages. By the time they get the third, they're uninterested. That doesn't mean what they put down those first two pages aren't important, so we allow for that.
Okay. And then you said you have about 1,000 responses you average?
We had 11. What was it last year, 1,100?
1,100, okay. And
so we're growing every year, so we're excited about that. I know we do understand it is a priority for this board.
The racial and ethnic representation, do we know what that was last year in the survey? And are we going to take any efforts? Well, what is it? You know?
I don't have that information off the top of my head, but I did compile that in a report, so I can get that information for you.
Yeah, and so I would just like to know that, and then so we can do a comparison to this year, because I think that's a big piece. We want to make sure that the racial and ethnic representation within the survey is there, and if it was low last year, what efforts could we take this year to try and get more of that representation?
I know it was lower 2 years ago than last year, so we tried a few different things. That's one of the plans we had, even in reaching out to the faith-based community. So showing up on a Sunday after a sermon might be a good opportunity. We do work with La Familia.
Okay.
So we have contacted newspapers that are specific to populations within our county. So there are some newspapers, some publications that are very specific to a different group. So those are some of the things. But yeah, that is a priority for us, because in the past, to your point, when we've looked back and acknowledged this is a gap for us, we're not hearing enough from diverse groups within our county, and that's important.
And is it available in other languages or just English?
I think last year we did it in Spanish. I think we've had it translated in Spanish in the past. but I'll double check. And as you say that, now I'm thinking we probably should do it in Spanish and Arabic. We are, for most of our publications, those are the two languages outside of English that are spoken the most in Oakland County, and those are the two that were required. So we'll make sure to get that translated.
Yeah, because that could be a step that could
Yes.
help with making sure, because a lot of times if somebody goes in and it's in English, then it's the whole thing, you gotta get a translator, and then they gotta read it, and it takes a minute. So, if we provide another language, the most prominent languages that we would need, and get it out to the targeted communities, that could help.
Yeah, that would definitely help. Thank you for that suggestion.
Thank you.
Yes, John?
Okay, so on that same vein, I know on the Medicaid payer side of the fence, they have to do things in multiple languages. So I wasn't sure if we had a requirement for the assessment. A requirement, not a, it's smart to do it, just a requirement by the state for our assessment. I couldn't be sure. The other is, in terms of if you're looking at ethnic and other demographics, I don't think we did anything last year with geographically identifying where a person served are responding from, because we just know, I can't even think of what the right term is. We don't know anecdotally. We know anecdotally we don't serve some of the areas of the county as well as we'd like, or serve the persons that live in those portions of the county. So I'm wondering if we could do that. And then the last, I don't want to call it a pet peeve, but I raised about like and not like, and on those preferences. And while it's interesting to know they don't like something, and the one that I always think about is transportation, it doesn't tell you how much or what suggestions they have where we can improve and better serve them. And that I was hoping we'd gain that knowledge in some of these, in the more hot areas or hot topics of services we provide, to know how could we do a better job, how could we expand, move the dial, move the, whatever the term is, thing. I just think that we could always do a better job, but it's always better to do it in ways that the persons we serve feel it gives them the most benefit. And what we learn can always be shared with the rest of the state, saying, maybe MDHS, we need to evolve the services that we provide.
I think that's where those in-person meetings are the most important. We do leave spaces in different sections. You're absolutely right, for people to add input. The conversation that happens, people will be talking about something, and they may not even realize what they're sharing or how they're sharing, but it resonates with us. So when we're in those in-person meetings, after they're done with the survey, we just have general conversations. What do you want us to do differently? In regard to our requirements, so Section 1557 is what it's called. It's very vague on what we need to translate and what we don't. They call it important documents. So we do have a list that we keep based on some of initially when that was first put into law of newsletters, important provider bulletins, those types of things that we have translated. But the assessment is definitely one that should be on that list that will make that change. So it's tricky. When we were first doing that training, we were help us on, just tell us we're good, but they said, well, you decide.
No. Yeah, I've got to believe appeals is one that where they specifically state which languages thou shalt put into the document.
Yeah,
so they know how to call.
There is also, if you look in all of our buildings, and it's in our office too, we are required to keep a poster. We have ours mounted in all of our buildings, and it talks not just about those first two languages, but it's 11 different languages that have been noted in the state. So if anybody has any concerns about information they want, 11 different ways that say call here for help.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. Dr. Hans.
Yes. Dr. Hans?
My question is also about languages. Yeah, state has 11 languages, I think. Mm-hmm. You see it on the last page of all the paperwork you receive from them. So, but obviously this cannot be available to everyone, especially to people who are filling out a survey. And I disagree on the fact. I think surveys are important because that is how we impact the care that we or the services that we provide. So this is a critical document that that directs us. My second question is what about accessibility for people with disabilities and also the neurodiverse population? I had not had a chance to go through the whole document, so I can comment if it's buried somewhere in there, but that should also be included in the future, if not now, because that is kind of is increasing rapidly, especially with AI and crowdsourcing and all those things. So people are asking all those questions too. When am I going to be able to access this or that technology?
I will say this, we do make the survey available to people, and I'm sorry, we do think this is important, the survey. We just have discovered through conversations that we need to make this a part of a bigger analysis than just our network, but this is important to us, and I know it's important to you. We do respond to requests to have it enlarged, and as you're talking, I'm thinking, I'm going to talk to NASR and see, is there a way to transition this survey when, in addition to being electronic on the computer. I will have to check our website and see, will it read it to you? Because there are certain things on our website, most things we do have accessibility on our website. So if you click our website, there's the icon, and it will read what's on the page. I don't know if that's applicable to surveys, so I'll find out, and if it is, we'll just implement that. If it's not, we'll see how we can find a way to have the survey read to people.
But my point was about the survey. What is that population thinking about? Are they hoping that it happens sometime in the future, that they have those technologies available to them, or things like that?
We can include that in the survey.
Yeah.
We'll look at adding some of those questions about.
Yeah, at least we should start thinking about it, if not actually.
That's a really good suggestion, and help us maybe, in a question of help us plan for next year. These are some things we're looking at. We're similar to what we do when we ask, what do you want to hear at board meetings? I know the board had asked that, so we ask people to prioritize what they want to learn from this group. So maybe we talk about preparing for next year already. What are things that you didn't see in this survey that you want to see in next year?
I had just one quick question. We have you scheduled for next month at the study session for an update. Do you know exactly what that was going to be? Because by then, what's your target date for distribution?
We should be sending it out by the end of the month, and then receiving all the responses back by the end of March.
Okay. So when you said the end of the month, you mean the end of this month or the
end of January?
So I wasn't sure what the update was for. Was there some specific thing that?
Maybe we should check with Sheila when she is back.
It might have been just an update on what we're seeing in terms of response. How many? So it might have been an update on that.
Yeah, the study session is a little thin, so we might ask you to do that at the board meeting. So if we have a study session, okay. All right, thank you. I'm sorry. Did you?
Question, since I think to piggyback onto one of my board member friends here, but one of our board members mentioned in the area that she's in that they do not receive certain services or what have you. I can't remember which board member it is. I'm sorry. Right. I did do it right. And so I'm wondering, how do we assess, or can we gain some information from them to say, here's what services we can offer, can afford, to reach out to you on, just to understand, are we reaching the proper mix? And, apparently she was very concerned about not being able to get certain things, certain contacts, certain communications that may have gone out. And I'm wondering, in the assessment that we send out, whether it's by mail or what have you, but how can we assess her needs, her area's needs, that would give us a better way of saying we're reaching total populations?
When we were just talking about that, I was going to mention to Francis after, I think if we add an area where we add a zip code, that might help us with those geographical information. Nasser also just came up here to say while I was talking, he was checking, and if we send the survey out on SurveyMonkey, it will read the whole survey to people and they can answer. So, and I'm sure they have other accessibility options as well, so Nasser's great, he'll figure it out for us.
And I apologize for not remembering my board member's name.
Okay, I think that's it. Thank you very much, and we look forward to the results and your analysis. Thank you. Great job. Next, we have our financial update through November of 2023, our CFO and deputy. Welcome.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Cheryl Johnson, Chief Financial Officer. I'd like to start out by saying that we have decided to pull the budget agenda from this, the budget amendment, from this evening's agenda. Some of the assumptions that were made during the budget preparation are not coming to fruition at this point. And based on the trends that we're currently seeing, we feel we need to do a little more work on that. So we plan to resubmit next month once we have a full quarter's worth of data for us to analyze, and we think that at that point we'll be able to provide you with more accurate information.
Okay. Okay. All right. Do you want to walk through what your
yes.
Your regular report. Okay,
right.
Thank you.
So for the eligibles report for October and November, as you can see, we are seeing a decrease. The trends are going down from where they were from last year. Actually, they're going down in all the categories. And this is something we are continuing to monitor very closely because these trends are going to have a major impact on, well, it's one of the things for the budget and for our revenue projections for the year. So this is something we look at all the time, and we'll continue to update you on as we get more information.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Any questions?
Yep.
Yes.
Sure. It looks like, flip back, please, just so everybody knows what I'm talking about. So it looks like the DAB is pretty close. And that this question's come up before about the, theoretically, those should be automatically redetermined because, and I know that's the mystery, having a young man in that category, and I can't get an answer from the state about even where he is. But is that pretty accurate? That category has gone down kind of microscopically versus the HMP that's gone down pretty significantly.
That's what our data is showing us right now, and
Okay.
I have some concerns over that. I would think from everything we're hearing that it would be dropping a little faster than it's showing up as. So that's one of the reasons we want to wait until we have at least a full quarter's worth of data to look at to make sure that that's kind of where we are. But I think that that's a concern.
Okay, thank you.
So, understanding where we were last year and trying to figure out how do we make sure that we have in place some things to help us to alleviate as much of the issue, controllable issues, that we can. As you looked at the trends already, okay, and thank you for what you do, I'm going to ask you about concern. If you say, here's what I'm very concerned about. There's some things that we can fix, almost, but major concerns. Even as you say, once I get a full quarter, I'll know. But there's probably some things that's, lights are starting to go up. Where are you on that?
My main concern is with the revenue. I'm a very conservative person when it comes to budgets and revenue. And the trends that we're seeing don't agree with the assumptions that were made with the budget that was done initially. So that's where my major concern is. I want to make sure that we are not overestimating where we're going to end up. And from what I'm seeing right now, that is a major area of concern.
So if I want to remind everybody, just listening to Cheryl, because I talked to her earlier today, this is just not an issue of if you remember back when we did the budget, it was unprecedented, and it still is. We don't know what's going to happen with the roll-off from Medicaid, and we don't, on redetermination, and we still don't have any kind of answer from the state on rate increases to compensate for some of this. So unfortunately, we did the best we could in the budget, I think. We could have been real draconian, but we're trying to do the best we can. So now, unfortunately, after a quarter, we're seeing that the state is not giving any kind of indication of what they're going to do with rates. So it's kind of come to the point where we have to make sure we do the right thing, which we always do to stay financially solvent. Insolvency is not a question. That's not an issue. It's just that we have to prepare because nobody is giving us that information, and the eligibles are rolling off a little bit quicker, I think, than everybody thought.
Right.
So as a result, Cheryl has said, let's analyze this a little bit more with a full quarter's data and come back to you with budget amendments. And look at, this should come as no surprise. We're going to see revenue decrease. So we're going to have to deal with it. So unfortunately, it's not something we asked for, and it's not something we did. We're not messing up here with anything. It's the circumstances, which I've never seen this in any kind of governmental accounting or anything I've been involved in, where we just have this giant unknown out there. And now Cheryl suggested, as a CFO, we're going to have to. This is the time to deal with it now. Let's deal with it early rather than waiting. And I agree with that.
Right, and that's what I'm thinking. I agree with you on that because there's so many unknowns.
Right.
There's so many unknowns. And I'll go back to my always what ifs. Okay, what happens? Or what do you think we can do? Or what can't we do? Because I think we know we're not going to get what we used to get. I think.
Yeah, we knew
right.
that.
And we so okay, that one's out the window. So what else do we need to do on it so that it's not become a big surprise in relation to areas that we may have to adjust?
Right.
So that's.
Yep, and that's what.
And I know she's working. I'm just excited.
We're going to see the budget.
What she does and how she does what she does when she does what she does.
Thank you very much.
Well, I think along with the the budget adjustment amendments that will come forward, we will also expect a plan of some suggestions of what we need to do going forward, so we can continue to serve as best we can all the communities that we serve in a responsible manner.
Absolutely.
So, and it's a team effort. We work with our providers as best we can, and we're in the same boat as they are. So but we can't spend more than we have. That's the bottom line. So
Thank you.
Yeah, and that just is common sense. So I thank you for bringing this to our attention, and we're glad to see we're going to move on it.
Okay. A quick question.
Yeah.
So it would be next board meeting, then we may have a proposed budget amendment, and we'll have better a quarter's worth of data to be able to make a educated decision or an informed decision?
That is our current plan, and if for some reason we're not able to achieve that, I will let you know as soon as I know.
Yeah, and my concern, I just want to make sure we're as proactive as possible on all of this.
That is exactly what I want to do.
All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Thank you.
All right.
Next, item is, the board chair executive report. I'll make it quick. We had our executive committee meeting today, about the meetings in February and established our agendas. I did attend the, law enforcement breakfast, a couple weeks ago. That was an outstanding event. For those of you who weren't there, I think one of the high points, in addition to speaking to the officers, is we had a mom come and talk about the intervention that occurred with our crisis management and the police department. And to hear that story, I don't know if there was a dry eye in the house. And that was with a lot of police officers, men and women, to hear her be so thankful that because of this intervention, her son was saved and is on the road to recovery. And that's important for us to hear those stories. At the invitation of Pastor Jones, I came to the Pontiac Community Coalition Martin Luther King Day celebration, where Dana Lazenby, our executive director, received the Drum Beater Award, along with, I might add, County Commissioner Dave Woodward, who's a very big supporter of ours. So that was a great event. And then, of course, the legislative breakfast, which has been mentioned. So those were some of the things that occurred this month. And I'll next pass this off to Yvette Woodruff on policy management.
Good afternoon. There were 3 items under policy management on the committee of a whole agenda. The 3 items were for review and file only. The first item was the annual plan's outcome for funding year 2023. The report was presented by Ms. Frances Carley, the Director of Strategic Initiatives and Special Projects. Lots of discussion ensued regarding all the areas that the organization collects data in. It was a very comprehensive report. The key items included staffing and retention, quality systems of care, administration and service delivery, integrated health care, partnerships, advocacy, and outreach. The second item for file and review was the fourth quarter compliance report update by Ms. Marquita Massey, the Director of Quality Management. Ms. Massey reviewed the contract requirements, the OCHN hotline reporting, meeting requirements, the actual compliance activity for the fourth quarter, as well as for the fiscal year 2023. She provided detailed information to questions that were asked about some of the statistics. The third item for review was the annual state recipient rights report, which was prepared by Ms. Vicki Suter, the Director of Recipient Rights. She provided within the board package a 32-page report, and she presented a bird's eye view of what transpired during the year as part of her presentation on appeals which were received and substantiated during the year, and the status of the outcome of the goals that were in place during funding year 2023, as well as the 3 goals for the RAC members, what they were going to be working on during funding year 2024. That concludes what was discussed under policy management at the Committee of a Whole meeting on January 8th. Respectfully, Yvette Woodruff.
Thank you very much. Mr. Landsman with the Finance Committee.
Thank you. I'll be reporting on 2 things. One, this is now becoming a pretty regular thing. We on the, myself as the Finance Treasurer and the Finance Committee Vice Chair, John Young, along with our CEO, have been meeting with our CFO and our CEO and our Deputy CFO regarding the financials. So we've been doing this every month now since the fiscal year began, trying to make sure we're staying on top of things. As you heard earlier tonight, we were expecting to do a budget amendment, but we're going to hold off and really retool the budget itself and look at it as a budget amendment by the end of the quarter. So that's where we're heading. So we did that. We've been doing that especially because we are looking at the counts of DABs, TANFs, and healthy Michigan folks. So because they drive our revenue, and as you've heard me say in the past, no revenue, no mission. We have a mission, and we're going to continue to deliver that. We just need to know to what extent we can grow or evolve the organization to meet our needs of the people we serve. So, like I said, that was the meeting with the finance folks back on January 5th, Friday the 5th. We just had another one today. and we'll have another one in a few weeks, I'm sure we will. The other is the Committee of the Whole meeting on Monday, January 8th. We covered 3 financial topics. The first one was the topic of the budget amendment, which is now going to get retooled, and hopefully it will be on the agenda for next month. We'll see. But either way, we'll have a better feel for where things are trending. And as I can look at the graphs and look at the data behind the graphs, the numbers are trending down for revenue. Without a doubt, we've got to watch even more so than what we had originally expected in this budget. So I'm glad that our CFO, Cheryl, that you're working on this, and your crew. The second item is the ADP contract that Glenda Witherspoon and Edna White, our Director of HR, presented, and that's to expand and the number of modules we use with ADP to cover HR kinds of things, recruitment, goal management, as well as compliance and talent acquisition. So that's for a change that you'll hear about tonight when we get to some of the regular business of the business. But that's to expand the use of ADP's modules, and that will come at a cost of roughly $81,000, $82,000 per year for the next 2-3 years, plus where's it under one-time, a $3,300 one-time cost. So our finance committee voted to support this contract extension and increase for full board consideration later at tonight's meeting. And then the third thing is, as usual, the state came up with some additional contract amendments for the PIHP contract. I'm sure they'll have another one for the CMH contract, CMHSP contract too. But this is the first of probably 2 or 3 or 4 amendments that the state has presented to us for approval. In turn, Kalana Ali, our legal counsel, presented it to our committee and asked us to, where MDHS is asking us to approve this amendment. And it pretty much updates the terms and conditions that we have, as well as some financial and non-financial reporting requirements, local funding obligation schedules, and behavioral health capitation rate certifications. So it doesn't change the financial implications. It doesn't give us more money, doesn't take away more money, but it adds to, as usual, the administrative burden we have for running it. But if we don't agree to the agreement and sign the agreement, then we won't be the functioning entity. And if we're not the functioning entity, Oakland County won't have a PIHP that can provide the funding for the services for servicing the people we serve. So we voted to approve that for board consideration later on. And that's my report.
Thank you very much. That's completion of our committee and board reports. Next, we'll move on to 2 board approval items tonight, as has been mentioned by Mr. Landsman in his report. First, the ADP contract. And this was reviewed at the Committee of the Whole meeting with a recommendation for approval to the full board from the Finance Committee.
So I'll make that motion to approve that contract.
Second.
A motion, is there support?
Second.
Okay. I assume you wanted to come tell us something, Edna?
No, I'm here in case someone
Answer
has
any
a
questions? Okay. All right. No, you were here at the last meeting, so we appreciate your update on it. So, anybody have any questions for Edna? Okay, there being none, any discussion on the motion? There being none, we're ready for a roll call vote.
Mr. Landsman?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mr. Furman?
Yes.
Dr. Giles, not here. Pastor Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Woodruff?
Yes.
Dr. Hans?
Yes.
Ms. Newman?
Yes.
Ms. Root is not here. Ms. May, I didn't see her coming. Mr. Torres?
Yes.
Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Carries.
Okay, motion carries. Thank you for coming. All right, next is the, also mentioned earlier, was the fiscal year 24 PIHP contract amendment. These are all non-monetary items, but nonetheless, contract changes that the state has requested.
Yeah. So I'll make that motion to approve this contract that doesn't change the funding from $435 million to $435 million, but still has all these extra terms and conditions and updated schedules that we have to abide by, along with additional obligations and services and reporting.
Second.
Motion and support. Is there any discussion? There being none, roll call vote, please.
Mr. Lansman?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mr. Furman?
Yes.
Pastor Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Woodruff?
Yes.
Dr. Hans?
Yes.
Ms. Newman?
Yes.
Ms. Root, okay. Mr. Torres?
Yes.
Mr. Cowan?
Yes.
Carries.
That motion always also carries. So that is the end of our board approval items for this evening. Next, we have the consent agenda for approvals of various minutes, including our December minutes for our board, and then recipient rights, committee of the whole minutes, and citizens advisory committee from December of 2023.
Move for approval.
A motion and support. Any discussion? There being none, a roll call vote, please.
Mr. Lansman?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mr. Furman?
Yes.
Pastor Jones? Yes. Ms. Woodruff?
Yes.
Dr. Hans?
Yes.
Ms. Newman?
Yes.
Mr. Torres? Yes. Mr. Cowan?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. The next item we have is 3 reports that we have under the category receipt and file. There is no action necessary for the board. As Ms. Woodruff pointed out in her report, all 3 of these reports, recipient rights, annual plan outcomes, and quarterly compliance report, were all reviewed by us at our committee of the whole meeting earlier in the month. So if there is no objection, we will receipt and file these reports. No objection. So please receipt and file those 3 reports. The next item is the board retreat. We do have a date on Saturday, February 17th. I'll be getting out an agenda, I hope, in the next week, and also with the place. And that's from 8:30 to 1 o'clock. That was the time, or the date that I think everybody but maybe one person is going to have difficulty after we pick the date, but we'll work on it. And please, I'm going to make the effort to contact everybody this week. So if you see my phone number, don't avoid it. Actually, next week, I want to get if you have something that you're passionate about and would very much like to make sure we talk about, I am going to allocate some time for us to talk, because we don't get a chance to do that. And so, there'll be an agenda, but it'll really be what the board, this is our opportunity. This is not driven by the staff. If there's information we think we need from the staff, we'll certainly ask for it. If somebody needs to come, we'll ask them to come. But this is really our opportunity to talk about our organization and its future and the board governance and things of that nature. So, all right, thank you. So mark that on your calendars, and please apologize to your families for us taking you away from all your errands and cleaning and other things you normally do on Saturday morning.
Yeah.
At least that's what I do.
Did you, Dennis, did you say where it was gonna be at? It was off-site, right?
Right, it's gonna be off-site, yeah.
Oh, okay, we don't know yet where.
I think I know, but I'm gonna wait because Sheila didn't tell me, or I think it's gonna be finalized, and I'll let everybody, I should know on Monday.
Okay.
Okay, good. All right, now we have, one other thing I wanted to bring up under other business, I forgot. So when we did the agendas today, it came to our attention that we have our cow meeting, our retreat, a board meeting. Some of us are going on the 5th and 6th to the state conference. And the agenda for the study session on the 29th was very thin. It was just an update on the assessment and a transportation update were the only 2 things. In my opinion, I think, or suggestion, we could probably handle those at the board meeting and not need to have a study session. because this one wasn't scheduled to be very busy anyways. And if, does anybody have, is there support for that, or you want to, something else you want to talk about it?
I'm just thinking that rather than try to pull the study session topic into the board meeting,
Yeah.
because that's the assessment, why don't we push that out to the committee of the whole where it's a less formal than the board meeting, and
Okay.
if there's discussion about the feedback and the results, that might be a better place.
Okay, then we'll put it on the committee of the whole for February. And whatever we have back, we can talk about it then. So is it all right if we, then I probably need a motion to, cancel the study session? Or just a... I'll make that. Okay, on the 29th?
Yeah.
Of February? Okay. Motion and support, is there any discussion? We don't need a roll call vote for this one. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Okay. All right. We have plenty of meetings to go to, plus all the events that we attend also, so it will be pretty busy. All right, thank you. Now we have board reports. Dr. Hans, Recipient Rights Advisory Committee.
Yeah, the minutes have already been approved, but I'll give my report anyway. This is what I got from that meeting held on January 4th at 4 p.m. Discussion was held under various goals and on the agenda. The first on the agenda was Goal 2, which is members get to know each other. And this is an item where the right staff introduce themselves, one member every month. And also a few months ago, they asked that leadership team may also be there. So this month was Adam. He was thoroughly grilled on his job description from all the other details, and he handled it very well. And if you want to know more about it, then he can give you an update on that also. There was one of the goals is to discuss the issues that are important to the members of the RRAC. This has been recently started and this year, and they feel that it's a good start, but they would like to hear more from the elected officials. Now, that can be logistically not always possible, but we just had the legislative breakfast this last week or this week earlier. So if that is publicized more widely, especially to the RAC members or people at large, so that they can attend that, and we heard about that in the public comment as well. So that's what we are hearing from people. The annual rights report, which has already been presented by Vicky Suder to this board, was also discussed at that meeting. The rights update was given by Angela O'Dowd, and the site visit report is approximately 12% complete. The numbers are kind of low during winter months because the access of people to that committee. That's my report. The next meeting is scheduled for February 1st at 4 p.m.
Thank you very much. The other report scheduled was Citizens Advisory Committee. Our representative is Christina Root, and she is not here. However, the minutes of the meeting are included, so if you want to review those, if something of interest in that for that committee. Next is our director's report.
Good evening, Dana Lassenby, a director for Oakland Community Health Network. Just want to go through quickly my written report, which is a part of this board's packet. Just to highlight, and it's already been discussed by earlier board members about the Law Enforcement Appreciation Breakfast, as well as the Legislative Breakfast, and our ceremony at the hosted
on Martin Luther King Jr. Day, so I won't replay those things. But I do want to take an opportunity to thank the board for their support as well as participating in those events. And this is something that is always good to see. I think already this year we're off to a good start where we've had 3 events and we've had board members present at all of those events. So I want to thank you for that. Also, I want to highlight we're very, very hopeful for the next year in terms of our movement on some major things in terms of expanding access. And so one of the things I'm proud about is our team is expanding the hours of access, but also here at our Troy building, we are also reopening and expanding our assessment center here. So currently, our diagnosticians provide assessments for autism spectrum disorder, the evaluation component. We're looking to expand those services so that we have more individuals and their families come here and feel welcome while they're receiving those services. So right now it's for the autism evaluation, but going forward we're going to be partnering with healthcare professionals as well as other supportive social services that we can have here in our building where families can come and get their needs met. So very proud of that. Also very proud of the work that our Justice Initiatives team is doing under the leadership of Dr. Posios and our director, Trish Zimzumbo. I hope I said her name correctly this time. But actually, and what they're doing is a threat assessment initiative, and we're going to have an event in February to talk about the threat assessment and the work that our team is doing with law enforcement community, the court system, as well as the FBI, so that we can address and eliminate, our hope is to eliminate violence in schools and violence in our community through that work as well. The other things that we're doing and looking forward to is looking at our crisis continuum, and part of that needs assessment and why it's so critical is really looking at gaps in services and care. So we want to make sure that we're filling in those gaps as much as possible. We want to hear from the community, but we also want to look at the data and look at our penetration rates and see where the individuals are that we should be serving and how do we expand. We have heard from our board member, Ms. May, who's not with us this evening, but she's talked about the limited resources and services available in the part of the community in Oakland that she lives in. So we're looking very closely at what we can do to begin to fill in some of those gaps. So that's going to be a critical part and why it's so important that if we can have everybody participate in that needs assessment, but also look at the data. And Oakland County Health Department and Oakland County as a whole collects a lot of data, and using that to really make our needs assessment and the report we get back to this board very comprehensive. The other thing I wanted to talk about is we talk about our concerns with redetermination and some of the challenges the state is having, and this is a statewide issue. So we're really focusing on what we can do here in Oakland County to help individuals with that process. And many people, and I'll tell you, quite honestly, even with myself working in this field for so long, you don't know that there are very, very, very different and unique benefits that are covered under Medicaid, which allows for more benefits than some plans do. So we're really working closely with the community and our faith-based community, make sure that people know how to get those applications filled out, working with our provider network, making sure that they are checking to see if people are being redetermined appropriately. So a lot of people are getting redetermined, but what we're finding is that they're landing in the wrong eligible benefit pool. So looking at that is really critical because we know for a fact, when I started here, we were seeing about 23,000 people. The need has grown. So now we're looking at covering 29,000 plus lives. So the need is there, it's increasing, and the more we're putting out there to tell people about our programs, we want to make sure that we're able to answer the call and we're available when they are looking for services and supports. Let's see what else. I think that's it. Again, working very closely with the community collaborations, which really is the critical piece, and working with the state and really looking at ways that we can, again, fill in some of the gaps that we see and we know we have, and making sure that our
network of people who work here, but also the network of providers we have, that we are accountable and that we're working together to resolve some of the issues that are impacting the people we serve. So with that, that is the end of my report. Oh, I'm sorry, one more thing is I think it's really important to acknowledge our staff. We have our clinical director, Adam Hamilton, who was featured in Metro Parent Magazine, talking about seasonal affective disorder and concerns with substance use disorders during this time of the year. We also have, believe it or not, Nancy Helpler, who is a support specialist and a part of our Office of Recipient Rights. She has a 45-year work record and history with us, so we really want to acknowledge her commitment to this organization publicly and thank her for her service for the last 45 years.
I saw that, yes, that is, I saw that in your report, and because this was an authority before it was, and she's been, almost here since the beginning of the organization and the prior organization, so that's amazing.
And still committed.
Yes.
On that note, can we give her like a proclamation, an award or something? I mean, that's a huge deal.
I think we should get her to a meeting.
That's as long as I've been alive, so, I mean.
I try to say that too.
I think we should, I think we should recognize, Jonathan, John Paul, that's a great idea. So why don't follow through on that?
We sure will.
One of the future meetings,
you know, you guys meet a little late, so we'll have to try to convince her it's worth
maybe we
staying
can,
out late.
we'll find some way,
Maybe we can arrange something during the day for that. I mean, that's a big deal.
For something like that, we'll all come early.
Okay, sounds like a deal.
All right.
And then I just have one quick question. The threat assessments, you said you guys were working on.
Yes.
Are you guys working with the schools on that as well?
Absolutely. Dr. Pozios and his team are planning an event, and I believe it's February 22nd. So you all get information about that, and it's really just a announcement and an overview of that program and how we're working with the courts, the law enforcement community, as well as the schools. So this is, I'm very, very proud of the work we're doing in this area. This is the first in the state, and really probably across the country. So we're working with, like I always say, our American Psychiatric Association Foundation, but when we talk to them, they're like, wow, what you're doing is groundbreaking. So the goal is to prevent ever having a mass shooting in this community.
And because the school districts are really taking a long look at the scathing report that came out of Oxford from that third-party investigation. And I know my school district in particular, admin, everybody's going through looking at, all of the shortfalls and things. So, but I know right now the school community, so that's good you guys are working with them because the school communities are really looking at that right now.
And we're also in support of training. So we have school mental health navigators. We have 5 of them currently. And I'll tell you, the work that they're doing is amazing. They've touched 700 schools in various districts, but they're also on call. So when schools reach out to us, be it a parent, a school administrator, teacher, or a student, we are answering those calls and trying to go out to the schools. And also there's training available. So there's a national training, Notice Talk Act, but also there's mental health first aid that's leaning towards adolescents and youth. So we're doing both of those aspects. So I think, too, getting the information out and making sure people know who to call, when to call, and where to go. I think that's the critical piece that we have to, as a community, do a better job of getting that information out there.
Right. Dr. Hans?
Yeah, on that note, yes, focus is on mental health and on the youth. But there was a recent small study, by no means applicable or scientific, but the mental health issues in the age group, adult males between the age of 24 and 45 is looming. There are studies starting on that, and I think that is something also we should keep in mind. You did mention that the number of eligibles has increased, so I think assessment is really important, and I think we should reach out to as many people as possible. Thank you.
I agree. And if I could respond, Dr. Hines, one of the things that we're advocating for at the state level as well on the Autism Council is caring for individuals on the autism spectrum who are adults. So a lot of focus in the last few years has been children or youth under the age of 21. And now the focus is now we know there are older individuals, young adults and older individuals living on the spectrum that need support.
Thank you. And thank you, Dana, for your report. I'm sorry, did you?
Yep, just on the threat assessment, which I think is just great for us to get involved in. And I'm wondering, and I saw Trish said she can add more things to this, the number of threats coming from young kids, 5, 6, 7 years old at school, and I'm sure that somebody's gathering that information to see what, I know that the police then or someone talks to the parents, but I think if we can get a collective information on what they thought was causing the issue and then what the resolutions could be, and then again that gets back to board member Micaiah, who mentioned about the program, the movie, resilience that we need to bring forward. So if we could add that to that, I think that would be good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, thank you for your report and follow-up answers. At this time, we have second opportunity for public comment. If there's anyone who, first, do we have anybody online?
If you're online and you'd like to state a public comment, please raise your hand. I'm not seeing any.
All right, thank you. Anyone else in the audience? Come on up, and please limit your comments to 3 minutes.
Hello again, Fred Cummins, Alliance for Middle-Aged of Oakland County. A couple other things that come up related to the breakfast. I don't recall any reference to CCVHC in that discussion, nor do I see anything, at least on the front of the webpage, any relationship to CCVHC. And from my understanding, the point is, it is a point of contact to solve anybody's problem in terms of getting them connected to what they need. And a bunch of people are those people being dropped because they're disqualified for Medicaid. They ought to be going to the CCVHC and saying, now what do I do? I don't think anybody's saying that. And there was a woman at my table at breakfast who was saying, well, she lost her job, and she's going to be disqualified from Medicaid. She doesn't know what she's going to do. Seems like CCPHC might be the place she should be going. So we ought to be referring people that way. Another point, you talked about, well, at least the material that was provided with the legislative breakfast was talk about navigators, school navigators, and you talked about new school navigators. The state, I'm not sure what the status is, but the state legislature has been talking about funding therapists in the schools. My vision is those therapists should be part of community mental health and assigned to schools, because if they're just located in schools, that's a dead-end job. They're not connected to anything. For people who need help beyond just some talk, they need to be connected to CMH. And some of those kids who are having problems that are identified by the therapist or whoever, need to be connected ultimately to CMH, including when they leave school and they now need more services, and they just end up in the community and they need to be connected before they leave. So I think that the school therapists are an important opportunity to get CMH engaged early with children. And I think there was comment that children's mental health is an increasing problem. And I know at least some of the outstate CMHs or outstate boards, I believe, are having trouble hiring school therapists because they don't have anybody in the community to do that. They don't have anybody to connect to. They have no place where they can see people being developed to become school therapists, which CMH could potentially provide an opportunity in terms of career path, both into that role and beyond that role, so that they have a career path, and connect them to people who can help them deal with more serious problems.
Yeah.
So I think we should be talking to, should be talking to the Board Association about advocating for that kind of action, that these therapists should not be Board of Education employees. They should be CMH employees who are assigned to deal with children. And that's something that should be advocated at the state level.
Thank you very much. I
Yeah.
appreciate that. Anyone else? Yes, sir. Pardon me? Sure. Okay. Go ahead.
Dear members of the board, my name is Amar Khan. I represent Metro Rehab Clinic. We're located in Oak Park since 1990 and have been a beacon of hope for those battling with opioid use disorders in southern Oakland County. We ceased to be a provider with your network in 2007, but our commitment has been unwavering from our Oak Park location to the community around us. Despite 3 applications for the SUD RFP over 7 years, I've faced denial due to lack of relationship with OCHN, low scoring, and misconceptions about our service area. We've been told that there's not many people in our service area, even though it's the most populous area in the county, densely populated area in the county. As a small organization, we just don't have the large budgets like other organizations in your network, but we are still resolved to provide quality commitment of quality service. And we are still at a disadvantage from other clinics. For example, Meridian, another clinic in your network, received 5 times the daily assessment rate for methadone treatment, as noted in Exhibit 3. This imbalance really hampers our ability to provide top talent and to attract top talent and to provide services. It's just really hard for us to compete when we don't receive hundreds of thousands of dollars in funding. Also, the area that we are located in, people have to travel 30 to 40 minutes to get to the clinics in your network. And that seems like a very restrictive, that seems like a problem for them, seems like a problem for them to do that every day for 2 hours out of their day. It kind of restricts them from finding a job or working or getting back on their feet. Additionally, in the last RFP in July, we scored a 77.37, and Therapeutics, another provider in your network, scored 76.69, which was then later rescored to 81.21. Then we were excluded from the award, and Therapeutics was the lowest that they gave to. which was surprising because in 2017 and 19, they did not do any type of rescoring, and they took scores as low as 76 and 49, as shown in Exhibit 3D. I just think that there's an urgency of care. That area where we are is very underserved. I've also noted statistics in the handout that I gave you, and I recently talked to Ms. Megan Phillips, the SUD director, and she acknowledged that there is a big need for a clinic in this area. But she said there was a window of opportunity, 6 months from the time that the RFP was due in July, which would be February 19th of this year, where we can go back and revise the decision. I don't think that the people in that area can wait another 5 years for a clinic that's accessible. I think the need is now and it's immediate, as outlined in my handout. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry, not being familiar with your organization. What services, what do you provide? I mean, I
methadone.
assume from your name.
Methadone, Suboxone.
That's, okay, just wanted to know.
You can go on our website too.
No, that's fine. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously, it's not something the board handles, but we will refer this to the administration.
Please, thank
Okay?
you.
Thank you.
Take care.
All right. Is there any other public comment? There being none, board member comments, so I'll start, Malkiah?
No comments tonight.
Jonathan?
Sure. Just want to thank those that presented tonight. Finance team, good luck. I know it's going to be a tall order to quickly do a budget. Usually you guys have like 2 to 3 months over the summer to do it. So today it sounds like trying to do it in 2 to 3 weeks. Tall order, but I think you guys have it. You can do it. If you have any questions, ask me.
Mr. Young? Yep. Pastor Jones?
Thank you very much. I wrote this down because I think it's important for the board and for those that work with OCHN and leadership. And I wrote that, and it's really made me proud of each one of you because of your dedicated, committed, creative, innovative, think out of the box approach and being people-focused, which is really the objective of what we're about. And so over the period of time that I've been, I tell you what, you've all made me very, very proud of your commitment and your dedication and how you are very creative in working to resolve some of the issues, and I thank you very much for that. And I know a lot of this starts with our CEO and the direction. They always say stuff rolls downhill, and so I want to thank them. And in line with that, Mr. Chair, I want to also compliment the board for their tenacity, for their involvement, and viewing what's happening. I think it's to push back to challenge. So my comment tonight is thank you for what you do. Thank you for being creative. Thank you, board, for what you do, because you've made me proud to be able to say I'm part of OCHN. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Woodruff? Any comment? No comment. Dr. Hans?
No comment. Thank you.
Mr. Torres?
I just briefly wanted to make a comment. I missed the first portion of the agenda where we talked about Dr. Taub. So I did have a chance to attend his funeral, and I did have an opportunity to work with him for approximately 5-6 years or so on this board. I just want to say a couple of words about him. He's a very passionate individual. I know he really lived and breathed OCHN when he was here.
Yep.
You know, he was took a strong stance on what he believed. He never wanted to settle a lawsuit. I've heard that from him many times. Very accomplished individual, a doctor. And, you know, going to his funeral was, it was just interesting to learn more about him that I didn't know, that I had known him for as many years, and I didn't know as much about him as I wish I would have. but I do know his work here, and he was very passionate about people that we serve and what he did on this board and being involved with the Michigan Association for years. And huge U of M fan. I think we all knew that. And so it was mentioned at his funeral that it was sad that he just passed before the national championship game, so to not see his team. But I think he would probably be upset to see Harbaugh leaving and go to the NFL. But then again, you know, the Lions might make it to the Super Bowl, so he probably would have liked that. But I just wanted to give kudos to him. And another thing just on that is that maybe at our board retreat, it might be good for us to maybe spend some time, because I work with you on the board, but I don't really know many of you or know things about you. And so maybe the question of why did you join the board might be something, because I kind of have you know, some inclining of why certain people join the board by piecing things together over the years. But I don't feel that we do that, and so maybe if we do that retreat, that might be something nice, because I wish I would have known more about Dr. Taub than I had known when he was alive. Thank you.
You're welcome, and that's a good suggestion, and we'll incorporate that, part of that into our meeting. Adam?
Yes, I just wanted to mention how affecting the stories that Inspire was tonight about the homeless problem that we encounter in Oakland County, and the point-in-time survey at the end of the month. Again, thanks to Francis, Christine, and their team, and just kudos to Cheryl and her team for that foresight of pulling back the budget amendment. Thank you for that. And just thanks to all of the staff members who spent time putting the agenda and presentations together tonight. Have a good night.
Thank you. I just want to mention that I want to thank everybody for adjusting their schedules and having such a good turnout at a rescheduled meeting. And all I can say in adjourning is, go Lions.